Welcome back to the podcast, Life Under the Moon. I am your host, Sammy B, and we are celebrating the new moon in Virgo. The theme of this transit is about reflection, and what perfect time other than to reflect inward on ourselves. And over the past months, maybe years, or even the past couple weeks, I've just released a video, and I will link it here for you guys to all check out. But it is all about reflection, looking back, and I have some really great tips in there, so I highly recommend you go check that out. Today's podcast is a little story I'd like to share with you. A little bit of a backstory. My instincts told me that I needed to buy a car. When I was looking for a car, there was two choices. One needed a lot of work, and one didn't. My instincts told me to get the one that needed a lot of work. It made no sense to me. And unfortunately, I didn't listen. And I got the one that needed no work. Well, it turns out, as you probably would guess, this vehicle has been a pain in my ass. And it's been the worst vehicle I've ever owned. And it's caused me a lot of grief and a lot of stress. And it's probably one of the biggest lessons I've ever learned, to always listen to your instinct, even when it doesn't make sense. Now, that's not really the point of the story. The point of the story is that this car has caused me a lot of stress, and it breaks down very frequently. However, since I've been on this new spiritual awakening journey, which I invite you guys to join, my reaction of situations such as this has changed immensely. Meaning, the other day, my dog really wanted to go for a drive and hike, and I really didn't feel like leaving the house that day. Like, I just really didn't want to go anywhere, but the look on his face told me that I had to put him first. So I got in our car and drove down the road and went for a beautiful walk, and I'm really glad we did. It was just a really nice getaway. However, I didn't know that when we got back, he accidentally hit the hazard lights, and in just 3.5 hours it completely killed my car battery, to the point where it was like the battery wasn't even in my car. I've never actually had a battery that dead before, which is honestly just very strange in my opinion. That something so small could kill a car battery that quickly. Old me would have freaked out and been so mad. I probably would have lit that car on fire. I would have been so upset. But when I had to leave 3.5 hours later after our hike, and I go to turn the car key and it won't even start, there was no anger. There was no frustration. There was no sadness. I looked at my dog, I smiled, and I said, I guess the universe didn't want me to drive tonight. Instead of freaking out, I sat there and I thought, okay, well, what could it be? I tried to figure out ways and why the car battery would be dead. So I popped the hood, looked underneath, everything was tight, everything was good. It didn't really make sense to me as to why the battery was dead when the connections were all tight, and I didn't leave my lights on or anything. So it was, I just sat and I tried to be logic about it, but I couldn't figure it out until later that evening when Clay got home and he hooked up my battery to some extra solar panels we had hanging around. And once my battery started to take a charge, I could hear a little ticking sound. And I realized that my hazard lights were on, because I now then had enough power to see what was going on. And that's what killed it. The point of this story is that the way I look at situations and tough situations, like, I had somewhere to be and I ended up being really late because my car wouldn't start, and I had to get a ride with Clay, and it took a lot longer. But I wasn't frustrated, because my perspective of the situation changed. Instead of being upset, I said, okay, well, the universe didn't want me to drive because maybe something bad would have happened. Worst case scenario, maybe I would have gotten into a car accident and died. Or maybe something not as severe would have happened, but maybe something would have happened. And that was its way of protecting me. You might think that that's silly, but what if it's true? We'll never know. Thank goodness. But if you look at situations as a blessing, if you find that inner secret blessing and positive outlook in everything, I guarantee you that life will be infinitely times less stressful. And that's the message I want to speak about in today's podcast. And I realized that by me now accepting that this is my fate, that I'm just simply not driving my vehicle tonight, I was able to sit back, relax, and accept. No stress, no anger, no frustration, just happy. And with less stress means less health conditions. That means that if you think of life in positive ways in negative situations, you will not only better your mental health, but your physical health, because stress leads to health problems. And with less stress means less health problems. And with positive mindsets equals positive physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental health. And that is what I realized during that situation. The more that we think about negative situations and turn them into positive, we are then able to better our life physically. And it all comes from the mind. So if all you have to do is change your mindset, and once you do that, everything falls into place. Because sometimes what we think we want is not what we want. And the universe knows the truth. So the next time that you come across a situation that might be some minor inconvenience or major frustration, I want you to slow down, take a breath, and try to find the positive. Try to trust the universe that what is happening is for good. You don't have to go completely 180 where my mind went. You don't have to think to the extreme. But if it helps, I welcome it, because that's the easiest way for me to accept that when inconveniences happen in life, they're actually for the good. And trust me when I say that when you change your perspective, your entire life changes. And this is something that I want to work on with you guys for not only the next 2 weeks for this new moon, but for the rest of our being here as a human on Earth. Now, this is where we take a listener's wish and we manifest it to make it come true. We have no comments, so please feel free to share something that you're wishing for. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be simple as you hope that you pass your exam next week. Anything that you want the collective to vibrationally think of. And today, I wish for all of you to find your true happiness. And I also wanted to note that this podcast, if you haven't already seen, is now on Spotify. And if you're on Spotify, it is also on my YouTube channel called Sammy B. Thank you guys so much for listening. Let's go manifest our dreams with our life under the moon.